Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to write quadratic equation given 3 points. Let's look at this example right here. Determine the quadratic equation with the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c that passes through the points 2, 9, negative 3, 4, and 5, 60. These are the steps that we need to employ in order that we can determine that equation of the quadratic equation that would pass through these 3 points that are given to us. Step 1 here is to plug in each point. So the point that we're referring to are the 3 points right here to the equation y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So let's take this first example right here. So that would be 2, 9. So what I would do is I would label this as the x and the y. And then I am going to plug this into this equation that we have here. So originally that's y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. What we do now is we plug this x and y into this. Now I'll give you a tip. Before you plug in values of x and y into the equation, the tip is change the variable into a parenthesis before you plug the values in. So in this problem that we have here, we can go ahead and change the y into a parenthesis equals, again, it's the x and the y that we change into a parenthesis. So that's gonna be a, and then we change the x into a parenthesis. There's a squared plus b, and then we change the x into a parenthesis plus c. So that's the tip. We are supposed to change the x and y into a parenthesis before we plug these values in. So in this case right here, we have our y is 9. So I'm going to put in the 9 there. The x that we have is 2. So each of these will get 2 and 2 right here. So then from here, we can go ahead and simplify the equation for the first one here. That would be 9 is equal to 2 squared would be 4a plus 2b plus c. So this is our first equation. Now let's look at the second point that we have here so that we can come up with the second equation. So that is negative 3 and 4. Again, remember this is the x and this is the y. So we plug this into this equation right here. So that would equal to y equals, again, that's ax squared plus bx plus c. Again, the tip is you are supposed to change the x and y into a parenthesis first before you plug this in. The purpose for that is because sometimes if we don't change it into a parenthesis, now if we get like 2 negatives and others can get confused and they're like, oh, what am I going to do now? So they're having trouble doing the math. So we change it into a parenthesis first. So that's a tip. So change it to a parenthesis, then we keep the a and then parenthesis squared plus b parenthesis plus c. So I changed the x and y into a parenthesis. Now, after I've changed it, now I'm ready to put in the values. The y that we have here is 4, so I put in 4 there. The x is negative 3, so I put negative 3 and then negative 3 for the other one. So then the second equation using this point that we have here would be 4 is equal to positive 9, and we get an a. So that is positive 9a. So we have b times negative 3 is a negative 3b. And then we got a c. So this is the equation that would that represents this using this point that we have here. Now let's move on to the third one. That's 560. So again, I'm going to write it up here. 5 and then 60. I'm going to label this as the x and the y. So then I'm going to write the general equation of the quadratic equation. That's y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Again, the tip is change the x and y into a parenthesis first before we plug in the value. So that's parenthesis a parenthesis squared plus b parenthesis plus c, and then once we change it into parentheses, we plug this in. So that would be 60, and then our x is 5, so I'm going to put in 5 here, and then I'm going to put in 5 right there. So the equation that we have here is 60 equals 5 squared would be 25, a plus 5b plus c. This is the third equation that is coming from this, using this point right here. Let's move on to the next step. So what's going on here is that we have these three equations up here. I actually wrote it on the next slide that we have up here. So I labeled this as step 1. These were the three equations that we got from the first step. We're going to use this for the second step. The second step is that using the three equations from step 1, which I wrote up here, and then the steps and how we came up with these three equations here was the first step. Eliminate C by subtracting the first and second equation and subtracting the second and third equation. What does this mean? So what are we going to do now is we are going to pair these two up. So the first and the second equation will be subtracted. So I am going to subtract these two. So then we can go ahead and say that would be, we can rewrite this, the 9 can be placed right at the end right here. So I can go ahead and rewrite this as 4a plus 2b plus c equals 9. So what I did is I just changed, repositioned the 9 on the end. It's just the same thing because they're equal. So then we go ahead and subtract it with the other one. So that would be minus, that's gonna be 9a minus 3b plus c equals 4. So I am going to subtract these two equations. Again, that's the second step. I pair this up and subtract them. So the first one that we have here was the first equation, and this one was subtracted with the second equation. I just changed the 4 I just put it to the end and then the 9 to the end. So it's pretty much the same thing. So we can go ahead and simplify this. So 4a minus 9a would be negative 5a. And then we have positive 2b minus negative 3b is a positive 5b. And then we have a c minus a c is a 0. So that means we have eliminated the c. So that's the purpose why we subtract it. Again, we eliminate the c by subtracting the first and the second. So the c is already gone because c minus c is 0. 9 minus 4 is equal to 5. So this is our equation right here. Now the second part of this step is to subtract not just only the first and second, but the second and third equation. That means I'm going to subtract these two. So pretty much like doing the same thing, but it's this time around, it's the second and the third. So that means I can set this up this way. I'm going to rewrite this. That would be 9a minus 3b plus c equals 4. I will subtract it with this. So minus, that's going to be 25a. So 25a plus 5b plus c equals 60. Again, it's pretty much the same thing. The 4 was just placed on the right side and then the 60 was just placed on the right side. So it's the second and the third equation now. So the second equation minus the third equation. So from here, we can go ahead and subtract these two. 9 minus 9a minus 25a is negative 16a. Negative 3 minus, that's gonna be 5b is a negative 8b. And then c minus c is 0, so we can cross this out. We eliminated the c. And then 4 minus 60 is equal to negative 56. So these are the two equations from step 2. So pretty much in the first step, we had 3 equations. In the second step, we tried to narrow it down. We are able to get 2 equations. Let's move on to the third step. Using the 2 equations from step 2, these 2 equations that we have here, eliminate a by multiplying the first equation with the first coefficient of the second and vice versa. Subtract the 2 equations, solve for b. Now there is another option that we can do this. Instead of eliminating a, you can eliminate b first. It doesn't really matter. The answers would still be the same. So what I'm trying to say is we're going to subtract these 2 equations that we got from step 2. So what are we trying to do is we narrow down since we started with 3 equations, we narrowed it down. We came into 2 equations, and then in step 3, we're supposed to come up with 1 equation. So we're subtracting these 2 equations that we have here. So I'm just going to go ahead and write negative. So I'm going to subtract these 2. So that's negative 5a plus 5b equals 5. And the other equation is negative 16a minus 8b equals negative 56. Now, the next step here is to eliminate a by multiplying the first equation with the first coefficient. So what I'm trying to do here is that the first coefficient of the second, so I'm going to put this inside the parentheses, put both of them inside the parentheses. Whatever is the coefficient of the second one, the first number that we have here, I will multiply it to the first. So that would be negative 16. And then the first coefficient that we have here is negative 5. So I will multiply this by negative 5. So pretty much whatever this number, multiply it to the first. Whatever this number, multiply it to the second equation. Now, what are we going to do now is we are supposed to distribute this. We're going to distribute these values that we have outside the parentheses to each of the terms inside the parentheses. Now, here's the thing. Others miss this part. They only distributed it to the first one. That is not the right way to do it. You are supposed to distribute to each one of them. So the negative 16 shall be distributed to each one of them here. So then from here, we can go ahead and say that this equation, after we distribute that, so negative 16 times negative 5a would be 80a. So I'm going to write 80a. That's positive because both are negatives. Now, if you have negative 16 times 5b would be a negative 80b. And then negative 16 times 5 would be equal to, that's negative 80. And then from here, we can go ahead and do the same thing on the second equation. We're distributing the 5 to each of the terms here. So I'm going to distribute that to each of the terms. Again, others distributed it only to the first one. That is not the right way to do it. It has to be distributed to both of them. So doing the math here, we have negative 5 times negative 16a would be 80a. And then we have negative 5 times negative 8b is a positive 40b. And then that is equal to negative 5 times negative 56 would be a positive 280. It's positive now because we have a negative and a negative. So it says here that we're supposed to subtract the two equations. So we are supposed to subtract them. So then we can go ahead and subtract these two. So 80a minus 80a is 0. So you can see here, we have eliminated the a. So a is gone. So then from here, we can go ahead and do the math for the rest of these. So negative 80b minus 40b is a negative 120b. And that is equal to negative 80 minus 280 is negative 360. We want to solve for b. So then from here, because that's what it says here, solve for b. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 120. Divide this by negative 120. So we can cross this out. We're left with b is equal to positive 3. Negative 360 divided by negative 120 is a positive 3. So this is the answer right here. It's positive 3. So we are done with step 3. Now, again, I've mentioned a while back that you can eliminate b also. So the strategy that we use if we want to eliminate b is that whatever this number that we have here, that's the number that you multiply here instead of 16. Since we wanted to eliminate a, that's why we were using these coefficients of a. But if you want to eliminate b, you can go ahead and write negative 8 here and positive 5 here and do the same process. You still come out with the value of a instead of a b. Again, looking at this, these are the three equations from step 1, and these are the two equations from step 2. And so I'm going to just label that with the different color. Again, three equations from step 1 and the two equations from step 2. What I did was I actually wrote that up here so that we will have a guide on what to do. So what's going on is that I wrote the three equations from step 1. I wrote it up here, and I wrote the two equations from step 2 because we are going to use these equations that we have in step 4. So this is step 4 right here. In step 4, we're supposed to solve for a using any of the equations from step 2. So we go ahead and use one of these equations. It doesn't matter. And so we can go ahead and let's just pick this first one right here. So we go ahead and write negative. Again, you can use any of these two. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and say negative 5a plus 5b equals 5. Now remember that we were able to solve for b in the previous slide. The b that we got is 3, and that's the one that we plug in here so that we can solve for a. So then from here we can go ahead and write this as negative 5a plus 5. Again, the trick is change the letter into a parentheses before you plug in so you will not have trouble doing the math. So the b that we solved was 3. So I'm going to put in the 3 here. So then from here we can go ahead and simplify it and solve for a. So that would be negative 5a plus 15 is equal to 5. We want to solve for a. So then from here we can go ahead and subtract 15 from both sides. So minus 15 and minus 15. So then we can go ahead and cross the 15 out. So we're left with negative 5a is equal to, this is going to be 5 minus 15 would be a negative 10. So then we are going to divide both sides by negative 5 because we want to solve for a. So let's divide by negative 5. So then our a is 2. So we have solved for a. Now, the other part of this equation is that we're supposed to solve for c using any of the equations from step 1. So to solve for a, we were supposed to use any of these two equations. To solve for c, we are supposed to use one of the 3 equations from step 1. So let's just use the first one right here. So that would be 9 equals 4a plus 2b plus c. So we already have solved, we already figured out that the b was 3 and then the a was 2, the one that we solved here. So then we can go ahead and say 9 equals, again, the hint is, or the trick is, you are supposed to change the variable into a parenthesis before you plug in the value so that you can, you will not have trouble doing the math. So that would be 2 parentheses plus c. So then from here, our a was 2. I plug it in here. And then the b was 3, the one that we solved in the first slide. So then from here, we can go ahead and simplify this. That's 9 equals 8 plus 6 plus c. So then from here, we can go ahead and add these two together. So that would be 9 equals 14 plus c. We want the c, so we subtract 14 from both sides, minus 14. So then we can cross out the 14. We're left with c is equal to 9 minus 14 is negative 5. So pretty much, again, we have solved our b from the third step. We were able to determine b as 3. And so we can go ahead and plug it in, plug it into the general equation of a quadratic equation. So that is, write the quadratic equation. Please remember that quadratic equation is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So then we plug in only the a, b, and c back into this. So then the final equation that we have here would be y equals, the a is 2, x squared, the b is 3, so plus 3x, and the c is 5 minus 5. So that means this equation that we have right here, this equation of the parabola or this quadratic equation, when we graph this, it will pass through those 3 points. That's it. If you find this video helpful, hit like and subscribe for more math videos. See ya!